It's been years of outreach and networking and just trying to meet the right people. And when you get that job, you have to execute. You have to make sure that you're given 110% and making sure that every expectation is met, if not exceeded.
Well, very excited for the podcast today. We have Stu Gadd on with us. Welcome, Stu.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. So Stu is the co-founder and COO of DivFit Gyms. And I guess a little background, we, every June we go up to the Parade of Homes. Not every June. We try to get up there as much as we can. I have a lot of good friends that build up in Utah, and the Parade of Homes in Utah is like second to none. You guys do such a good job. I think it's one of the, if I'm not mistaken, the most heavily attended Parade of Homes. And here in Arizona, we don't even do it. I'm like, we don't even have Parade of Homes.
So we have to get on the train.
Yeah, so it's funny. We go up there, and a lot of the designers and architects I work with go up there just to kind of see some of the new product and designs and stuff that's out there. And we went to Crumble Cookie and happened to see the most amazing gym I've ever seen in my life with like cognac leather, and I'm a huge fan of cognac, and so that gym spoke to me. So and that's where we connected. So glad to have you on, Stu.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And it was great to meet you there. And yeah, the Utah Valley Parade of Homes is on another level. Just amazing. And the networking that happens there and the people you meet and the new things you see, it's an awesome thing to be a part of.
How does that work for you? Maybe we'll start. I think when you start a business, it can be really difficult to break into the market, to kind of get your name out there, that entrepreneurship journey, which I want to touch on. But, you have an opportunity to work in this incredible home that is going to receive a ton of traffic. What does that look like just from a delivery that you're like, hey, we got to execute? I'm sure you've had other projects before this, of course, you could speak about, but, speak about maybe this signature project, the thought that went into it, the timeline, other things to make sure that you're executing, to be ready for this big, showcase event.
Sure. Yeah. So this home, built by Robinson Build Co., was very, very unique because I'm not sure if you're super familiar with the background of this home, but initially it was just going to be, the home, right? And then I think a year or so later, the lot next door went up for sale, and Corey and the homeowner Sawyer, had this vision for building this entire health and wellness building. So if I'm not mistaken, from the time of acquiring the property to the Parade of Homes was about a year build. So once they got that lot and had everything drawn up, Corey, who we'd reached out to, geez, I feel bad. I think we harassed him a little bit. We probably reached out to him 10 times. Hey, you build these amazing homes. Let's put an amazing gym in. And he's like, boys, like when I have something for you, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
And so I would say probably about 9 months before the parade, Corey called us and said, I've got one for you guys. And so from there, we met with Sawyer's design team and with Corey and the architects, and drew up this, absolutely amazing plan. And also this, to date is our biggest job. We have a couple more coming up. They're going to, eclipse it a bit. But we really had to stretch ourselves with these supplier relationships and with learning as we go and being okay with making a few mistakes here and there, as long as we were committed to making those mistakes right. So yeah, leading up to the parade, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of design work. But don't even get me started on the install. My business partner, Tom, and I, we worked for, I think it was 60 hours straight getting that in, because you're on such a timeline, such a time crunch where so many things have to be done before, flooring is always the last thing to go in. And unfortunately, all of our equipment goes on top of flooring. And so, with that build timeline being so short, we had a couple days to get everything in, and we were able to do it. And it was an awesome experience. It was a great learning experience. And just super grateful to be a part of that project.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, just to get some context, and I love that you share that for a listener, because Brian Hebden, right, was the architect, and he and I have done a project down here, and he's been a guest on the episode, and so Brian and I are good friends, and so he gave me a little bit of the background that it was, they bought the lot and then decide, instead of trying to, they're remodeling the main house, but added this wellness area. And it was really fast. The timeline he told me from when he found out from an architecture side, I'm like, how did you even get that permitted through the city and then get it built? Like in the winter,
it was a crazy process. And, being there throughout the whole process of when it got framed and just the speed, but also just the insane quality that went along with it.
Right.
I was blown away at how fast they were able to put that up, but just the, eye of detail on that was just absolutely amazing.
Well, your execution and maybe, when this podcast goes live, we'll post, content around it. And of course, I'm going to post some of the video content I got up there because
Yeah.
I think, people have to have reference for what this was. I've seen a lot of gyms, home gyms. I mean, it's pretty common. And
Mm-hmm.
in fairness to you, Stu, I think that, a lot of gyms are pretty simple to some extent,
Mm-hmm.
even though we do some great homes. And then I walked in yours and I'm like, this is unreal. Like, it's nicer than any gym I've ever been to, commercial gym.
Yeah.
And then when you had all that like custom, like I said, cognac leather in there, and I'm just like, this is like, it's almost like a museum. I don't even know if I could work out in here. I definitely don't want to sweat in here. No, but I mean that
Right.
I mean that in the best compliment, that it's like, it's
Yeah.
definitely a place that inspires you. And something I've seen a lot of our clients demand is this wellness area has really
Mm-hmm.
taken off because, COVID really made an impact on that, where people are like, all of a sudden my gym's closed and I can't go. Like, the government's able to shut down my like personal health journey. And, so a lot of people that are in a position can take that into their own hands.
Mm-hmm.
How did that, did that play a role in you starting the company? I mean, what was the basis of DivFit?
Yeah, absolutely. That was a huge role in it. So just a little background on, how DivFit started. We started about 3.5 years ago is when we founded the company. Right as COVID was kind of letting up a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And our first job was actually in the St. George area parade of homes. It was one of those jobs where, it was a very basic gym. It was self-funded. We put everything in. It was just to show off. Nobody bought the gym from us. But that's initially how it started is, okay, we see this need for home gyms. And, to be totally fair, and when we started, our goal was just to put equipment in homes. It was not what we just did, at the most recent parade here in Utah Valley. But yeah, no, we saw this niche that really hadn't been filled yet. You have these people who buy these 10, 15, $20 million homes, and they're the ones that are going on rogue.com or titan.com and
Mm-hmm.
ordering the equipment and assembling it. And so we saw that niche. But then over time, as we grew, we saw, man, I think there's a need for this luxury kind of equipment and beautiful aesthetic. So yes, ultimately, I guess our idea was born in that COVID era of things. And over time, we've seen, since COVID, people have taken their personal health journey much more seriously. They realize how important it is to prioritize their health. And so, we've seen that, and we've tried our best to help people reach those goals with their gyms.
That's amazing. And so, from conception, when you see like, one of my previous guests is funny. He's like, there's riches and niches, right? And such like
Mm-hmm.
you find these areas, and not that you're, we know what it takes to build a company. There's a lot of work, you just don't print money. I mean, there's so much risk and, but as you look at this, I mean, it's a big venture to be like, hey, we see an opportunity here. We think there's a need, there's a market for it, from concept to reality. How has that journey been for you to work in a niche space? Like you said, you're after Robeson Builders for years till finally he's like, I got a
Yeah.
job for you. So, I mean, this is not something that's no overnight success.
Oh, absolutely not. No, it's been years of outreach and networking and just trying to meet the right people. And when you get that job, you have to execute. You have to make sure that you're given 110%, and making sure that every expectation is met, if not exceeded. So yeah, it's for the first year and a half, my business partner, Tom and I, we don't have a business background. Neither him or I have ever run a business before. We don't have, our parents were entrepreneurs. We didn't have family who were entrepreneurs. It was just us. And a lot of people saw our idea and were like, in the kindest way, what are you boys doing? Like,
Yeah.
this is not something that's going to take off. But we have this vision for it. And so for the first year and a half, I'm sure, I mean, you're Brad Leavitt. You probably get texts all the time and, people pitching you on their ideas and emails and things like that. These people are just inundated with, people reaching out with their new companies and ideas. And so what we did is we would just drive around to builders' offices, and maybe you hate me saying that. But we would just, find their office and see if we could set an appointment or see if we could, make a meeting with someone. And our first builder that we ever actually got in with was, his name is Eric Harper from Valor Homes here in Utah Valley. And we walked in his office and he, said, "Hey, what's up, guys?" And we sat down and probably talked to him for 2 hours, and he kind of caught the vision of what we were doing. And then later on, he called us for a job. But really that first year and a half was just hustle of just going out, emailing, calling, visiting people in their offices, buying everyone lunch and having those meetings. I think we probably just went about broke buying Chick-fil-A for people. It was a hustle, and now we're to the point now where people are reaching out to us, which is nice. But we try to keep that mentality of, no, this is on us. We still want to go out. We still want to talk to people, get to know people, show them what we can do. So even though the grind has changed a bit, it's definitely still there, and it's something we still prioritize, going out and talking to people.
Yeah, I love that. But there has to be some. You mentioned that you did the Parade Hometown St. George. What was that defining moment? Because at some point and I'll just be open maybe from my side. I've been pretty open about this. I think 5 years in business, I was like, can people make money doing this for a living? Like, it's so hard. Like, it really is so hard. Like, the length of projects, the complexity, the risk, pay, like cash flow. There's so many elements that we're dealing with, right? And, construction is very tough. And for you, you mentioned this is a year and a half that you're out there grinding, you're buying lunches. Like, that's an investment. Like, there's an investment in, lunch isn't free, and you're covering the cost of that. So, how did that look like for you and Tom as you guys are partnering up, saying we have this idea? Well, now the reality is, like, how did you have operations to get started and, start figuring this out ground up?
So for the first year and a half, Tom and I were still both working our full-time jobs. So we had some income coming in. So we use our funds to, pay for these things. And then from the St. George Parade of Homes, we had a few small jobs come in here that maybe made us, $10,000 in revenue.
Which isn't much.
It's just not much. And so we use those funds and I think this is important for people who start a business, is you have to view your funds as like sacred. Mm-hmm. You have to view it as this money that you have worked hard for, that people trusted you to give you to do the job right. And so, we used those funds on things at the time that we felt this is what's going to help us get to the next step. This is what's going to help us get that next job. Looking back now, were all those purchases the best purchases? Probably not. But that doesn't mean I regret those purchases, because, we learned along the way. We every time we make a mistake, we call it tuition. This is our tuition. This is our entrepreneurship tuition. And so, so we had some very small funds from the business, and then we had our own personal funds that we brought into it as well. And looking back now, I don't know how we did it. How that small amount of money got us to where we are. But it did. And I think a lot of it had to do with just that mentality of, we're going to use these funds to grow our business, to grow ourselves, and having that faith in ourselves.
So maybe break this down, Stu. The journey, the head down, working hard, being mindful of, the value of the dollar, if you will. But there's also the relationship side of performance. You have to have manufacturers. You have to have distributors. Mm-hmm. You are the distributor, but you have to have people that are supplying you with this custom outfit. The gym that you did that I toured through, how did you build relationships with the equipment? And then second off, is this one manufacturer that's turnkey? Are you finding your own, companies to do some of the like soft fabric, and leather work? Like, how does that work, the coordination from your side?
So our journey of getting suppliers has been an interesting one. When we first started, we reached out to your big dogs, Life Fitness, Precor, Cybex, the big ones you see in the commercial gyms. And they actually wouldn't sell to us. We told them, hey, like, this is our idea. This is what we're doing. We were, stoked about it. And they said, oh, sorry, you're competition. Like, we're not going to sell you our products, because they want to go in and they want to do these gyms. Mm-hmm. In reality, they don't really do home gyms. They do, bigger box and resorts and things like that. And so at first that was like, oh man, is this going to put us under? Like, we can't even get people to sell us equipment. But really that was a blessing in disguise, because it forced us to go out and find other manufacturers and other companies that would sell to us that you typically don't see here in America. So that the equipment that you saw in the Hemsley home was all sourced from the UK. It's an amazing equipment brand out there called Watson, and they've become, one of our number one suppliers. But their whole model is they have their baseline equipment, but then their customers can completely customize it with the color of the powder coating, with the upholstery, with the finishes, what type of metal you want on it, things like that. And so we have been able to establish a lot of different relationships with a lot of those different types of companies. We also, and I don't want people to think that we only do these amazing, several $100,000 gyms. We understand that everybody has different priorities when it comes to their fitness and their spaces. And some people do just want a really nice, normal looking gym with black equipment and black flooring and mirrors and things like that. And that's something we can still do. So we can still work with some of our manufacturers here in the United States and get people really high quality equipment that fits the bill of, your normal looking gym. Or we can go out and just make you an amazing luxury space. But one thing that we never do is compromise on our quality. If somebody wants just your normal gym, we can do that, but it's going to be the highest quality equipment. It's going to be stuff that functions well for you for years to come. So yeah, going out and creating these supply relationships was difficult. It took a lot of groundwork, just like meeting builders and designers. But I think the results have been, totally worth it, in making these amazing wellness spaces.
Well, I think, the flexibility there where you're like, hey, it's not entry level because it's still a luxury item, but you're like, hey, we have a package here that's price suitable and it can go, sky's the limit in a way, right? Yep. So you can, at least, depending on the demographic, client, project, I mean, there's a lot of variables that you can speak to. When you mention it's the UK, right? That you found this incredible manufacturer.
Yeah.
Now you're dealing with international, right? We've seen tariffs, we've seen shipping and freight. It adds a whole nother logistic element to your business. And now your timelines, you look at the Parade of Homes. I mean, you have a small window to get in there.
Yeah.
How's that learning experience been just working through, a company overseas?
Huge learning curve for us. Luckily, the UK was not affected too much by the tariffs, especially this company we work with. They manufacture all their steel in the UK. So it wasn't coming from China, which was a huge help. If it was coming from China, I'm not sure how we would have pulled that off because we did not, at the time, we did not have, the knowledge of what we needed to do. But yeah, it's been a learning curve. Ordering is fine, right? It's a pretty, streamlined process, but the working through the logistics of getting it here, if I'm being totally honest with you, Brad, I didn't know that extra money was going to have to be paid to bring in something from overseas. I thought it was like ordering off of Amazon,
Right.
And then all of a sudden I get this, $20,000 customs bill.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
yeah.
Holy crap. So that ended up coming out of our, of our bottom line a bit. But yeah, it's been a learning curve. And then even just getting, the equipment to us, because it comes, in these 40-foot containers and coordinating the warehouse space and the forklifts to get it off. Even right now we're working on a project where, just like most projects, it was supposed to be happening in December. It's probably got pushed back to January, February. And so all of a sudden we have these two 40-foot shipping containers of Watson equipment, and so I had to coordinate getting shipping containers on site that we had to unload from the trucks and load it into there. And so just the logistics and coordinating has been a huge learning curve, but it's something that's been manageable, and something that's been doable and no major mistakes so far.
Well, that's incredible. And then when you're, a custom gym, when that's coming out, is there any, work you're having to do custom once it's delivered, or is everything turnkey once it arrives?
Yeah. So we work with some amazing trade partners here in Provo. Chris from Wood and Weld. He has made us some amazing custom, dumbbell storage, revolving, like a carousel for your fixed barbells, an amazing A-frame for this luxury yoga equipment we brought in. So when it comes to the actual functional equipment, that's pretty turnkey for us. We can order it, we can get it installed, but there are a lot of custom pieces that we have commissioned, mirrors and things like that, where that's actually a really fun, part of the process of let's make something that's never been made before to store this beautiful equipment. So that way it's not just sitting on, a sheet metal rack in the corner, but let's make everything in this gym a statement and everything flow together. That's a really cool part of the process.
When a client or builder, as they're listening to this, thinking, okay, what should I budget for a gym? And again, this is probably similar to the question I get. We're like, Brad, how much does it cost to build a house? And you're like, well, what does it cost for a bag of groceries, right?
Yep.
And the way for me to kind of navigate that conversation is, to give them a range, because we do have ranges, right? And for us, it's not that we have a minimum, but we have clients that are typically probably going to be in this bucket or even up to this bucket. And so here's kind of, depending on all these variables.
Hmm.
What do you see from your side, Stu, as you're looking at this? Are you saying, hey, you probably to do a decent gym need minimum 50,000, upwards of, whatever. I mean, how do you have those conversations with clients to give them a ballpark?
Sure. Yeah. So of course, we look at the space and what they want, and if they want a custom look or if they want a more generic look. But typically, I would say that our minimum for, and this is for somebody who has a 12 by 16 room, they want a piece of cardio, some free weights, a trainer with some weight stacks on it. It's going to start you around 20 to 25 grand for a very basic gym like that, high quality, nice stuff, but your basic setup. And then from there, it typically, if somebody wants, has a bigger space and wants some more equipment and maybe a bit more customization, you're looking at the 55 to $70,000 range. If somebody wants a full custom gym, kind of what we did for Robinson, you're looking, at a minimum starting there around 130, 140.
Mm-hmm.
And then up from there, depending on the space and how much you want and how much customization you want. And if you want custom storage made, the sky's the limit. We're working on gyms right now that are, over $500,000.
That's
And one
amazing.
potentially one potentially up to $1 million. So the range is massive, depending on what you want. But I would say if somebody has, a 20 by 25 room and they want a custom, beautiful gym, you're looking at starting around 130.
That's amazing. I mean, the reality is it's, again, we understand the value of these things based on, the projects we do. But, as you come in, something that's reasonable, 25,000 is very reasonable, right? But
Mm-hmm.
again, the flexibility, I mean, in some ways, for how nice that gym was, I was a little shocked. It was 130, mid hundreds. I mean, that's there's a lot of customization, and
Yeah.
there's a lot that goes into that too. I think you mentioned there's to get it to the end user. You're not buying this on Amazon, right? There's a lot of
Yep.
coordination and design and layout, and just like
Mm-hmm.
no different than. And maybe I'll lead into this for you, Stu. For our designers, they when they're designing a space, not only do they have to look at this from the exterior architecture and how they bring that in, but then they also have to look at, well, how's the client going to live in this place? How are we going to lay out furniture? Where's the bed, the sofa, the end table, coffee table? And there's a spatial awareness, from an educational side for you and Tom, like when you think about design, spatial awareness, where does that talent come from? Because now you're trying to coordinate with the designer. Do the designers have a role with you in that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't want, it would be insulting if I were to say that I was an interior designer, because I'm not. Um, but I do have a pretty good eye for what's going to fit, what's going to flow well. And so essentially what we do is when we're meeting with the client for the first time, we'll hop on our rendering software and we'll make a very basic rendering for them of, okay, this is the equipment you want. Let's, drop this piece here. Let's do this flooring. Let's do these wall accents. Let's do TVs here, things like that. And then from there, if they do have an interior designer, we love working hand in hand with the designer. So we've worked with, Interior Concepts Design House. We're working on an amazing project with Studio McGee right now. So we love bringing designers in so they can give us the vision of what they want the aesthetic to look like, what they want the equipment to look like, what they want the upholstery to look like. So if somebody doesn't have a designer, we do work with designers that we'll bring in and we'll run our projects by them and say, hey, what do you think of this? This is how their home looks. Does this flow with it? And so we try to make it a very involved process with the designer just to make sure that everything fits in the way it's supposed to fit and everything flows the way it's supposed to flow.
Yeah, because there's definitely coordination. I mean, you definitely want it to mirror, the space that you're designing to, and not make it look like. I'm sure because you're custom, you don't want it to look just traditionally commercial, right? You want it to
Yep.
make it feel like a home still, even though it's a commercial grade equipment.
Exactly. And part of that is, sure, there's beautiful equipment out there, but at the end of the day, equipment is going to be equipment, right? I mean,
Mhm.
you can have beautiful equipment like we had in Sawyer's home, um, but it's still gym equipment. And so, really, what makes the gym special and unique, with the equipment, is the aesthetic of the room and working with the designer, working with the builder. A lot of times, people don't realize, that a door takes up a lot more room than just what the door takes on the wall, right? And so when you open it, and so you can't just have a
Right.
treadmill sitting 3 feet away from the door because you're not going to have room to get in there. So a lot of times that's kind of our role in the design process, working with the architects and builders and designers, is you guys don't need this whole wall of built-in storage because everything stores on the machinery itself, right? And then, there's just so much room associated with that built-in storage on the wall, or that, you know, huge glass door that you have. It's just really reminding people how this equipment needs to fit in, and where it needs to be in order for it to be a flexible, cohesive space.
I love that. What did DivFit? What is the name? What's the background of that?
So it actually started as Diversified Fitness. And we realized that was a bit of a mouthful. And so, one day we were talking about, I think we were actually driving to St. George for a job. And that's about a 4-hour drive from where we're at. And we were talking about, DivFit and how I guess we were talking about diversified fitness. And I said, man, why don't we just call it DivFit? And so it just morphed into that, and, got on Fiverr and had someone make us a logo, and that was that.
How is your marketing strategy? You mentioned early on, grassroots. You're finding builders there in Utah. You're taking them to lunch. How has that evolved now? As you start to have product, you have portfolio, you have content. What does your marketing strategy look like now to generate leads?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, we do your normal things. We have SEO. We do, paid Instagram ads. We work with an amazing company called Static, and they do blue collar brand building, essentially. So they come in, they film, amazing videos of our process. They film, the end product, and also manage like our paid ads and things like that. But really, what's been most beneficial for us is just the relationship we've created with people. It's the relationship we've made with architects, and we've made with builders and designers, to where I'd say most of our incoming projects have come directly from interior designers, where either they've worked with us before or they've seen our work and they say, hey, our client wants this amazing wellness space. I've seen your work. What can you help us out with? And so really it's the relationship that we've made. And I think also the reputation of that we're going to do the job right. And we're going to, keep to our commitments and keep to our timelines. That's been the best marketing anyone can do. And that marketing is free, is, showing up when you say you're going to show up, doing what you say you're going to do, and exceeding expectations wherever you can.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value. It's funny. I was just in Chicago. We did this coalition summit, and a question I'm often asked is, Brad, we see some of the product you're putting out there, these amazing projects like keystone to your success, and interior designers are a big part. Like I always tell them, interior design, right? When you have product that looks incredible because it comes from a very talented design firm and it allows our firm to, work more efficiently. It's a great partnership. And I'm sure for you, I mean, from a lead generator, Stu, I can see where that's advantageous. Have you seen people reach out from a retail side, maybe outside of builder, architect, design? What does that mark look like for you?
When you say retail, do you mean?
I just mean like someone on Instagram, like, hey, I already have a house that's been built. My house is 2 years old. Been wanting to do a gym. Like, love what you're doing, Stu. I mean, you get people calling when it's maybe not the designer, builder, or architect. It's just, hey, someone off the street that maybe walked the parade of homes.
Yeah, no, we do get that quite often as well. It can be tricky when it comes to homes that are already built, because when you're dealing with luxury equipment, it oftentimes comes fully assembled, right? And so you have this 1,500-pound trainer, and somebody has this nice room down in the basement, and it's like, hey, sorry, like we can't get that down there. So we actually have projects going on right now where we're going to have a gym go in a basement, and we're going to crane it in and just drop it there in the basement, and they're going to put the floor or the ceiling on, and so it is difficult when somebody has an existing home and they want that luxury space, because like I said, it comes assembled. But we do work with a lot of people who have that existing home, and they have a great space and it's easy to bring stuff into. I'll say that I think our preference is definitely working with with builders and designers and architects. It's just such a more seamless process. But yeah, we do have people reach out all the time, and a lot of times the people who do reach out are people who are, have that more $25,000 to $30,000 budget range. And we love doing those gyms for them, and we can get that in for them pretty quickly. We actually have, for those existing homes, if somebody wants a basic gym, we can usually get that gym designed, bought, installed in about a month to a month and a half.
What's interesting is you're kind of sharing that, even going back to your, you mentioned interior designers have been such a key resource for you. One of the questions that I get a lot is, how do you break into that space? Like if you're a manufacturer, or if you, do what you do to at DivFit, or maybe you're a builder and you're trying to work with new designers and new architects, or vice versa. Like, how do you kind of break down that barrier? And what I thought was interesting, it was probably like 10 months ago, there was a designer that had been really wanting to work with us at AFT. Mm-hmm. And, you can do the traditional stuff. You can follow them on social media. You can comment on their posts, see them at networking events, all the usual stuff that we know. But it was interesting. She did like one of her most amazing projects she had just finished, and they're getting it photographed. And she's like, Brad, I'd really like you to stop by and like see this home finish, right? So we go, we check it out, and just blown away, right? Like some of the thought behind it, the design details, like some of the really creative elements. It was such a unique project. And it was pretty genius, because it's like, hey, why don't I just come see my work? And then hopefully that has a big impact. And, for you, here you are on the podcast, I go see Parade Homes, I go walk it. And there was something about seeing that in person where I'm like, yeah, at some point there's going to be a project for Stu and I, for my client, because, this hits home. And so I'm sure there was an investment, tying us back to Parade Homes, but there's something to be said, I'm sure, for you, where you have something like this that, designers can come see, touch, feel, and be like, yeah, this is an experience I want.
Yeah, no, definitely getting people into your spaces helps a lot. We had a lot of people come by that Parade Home, and Corey at Robinson was great to work with. He's like, yeah, boys, if you have someone you want to bring him in, when the parade's closed, bring them in before it starts and give them that kind of that tour of your space. So that's helped a lot. But, I think that people think a lot of the time that when you're trying to break in this space with interior designers, I've seen people think that they need to be someone who they aren't. Mm-hmm. I've seen people come in and not be authentic to themselves. And my experience has been working with interior designers that they are some of the most down to earth, kindest, warmest people you can ever meet. And so just going in and being yourself and not being someone who, and not being someone who you're not, I think one designer that I absolutely love is Jackie from Interior Concepts Design here in Pleasant Grove. And she is one of the kindest people I've ever met. And it's so fun not having to try to put a face on around Jackie. You can just totally be yourself. You can joke around. You can talk about the things you're struggling with your project. You can brainstorm together. So I think if somebody wants to break in with, interior designers, with builders, it's important to go in being yourself, not trying to be someone that you're not going in with, expectations of who this person is. Just try to grow that relationship organically.
It's incredible. I mean, growing organically is tough. It's tough to do that. What pushback did you get when you're trying to just show up at someone's office and take them lunch? I mean, how many times not was the door slammed, but how many times did you get the cold shoulder?
Oh man, we still get the cold shoulder. It happened a lot, and it was really, really disheartening. I can think of one builder who, from the beginning, we've really wanted to work with. And we stopped by that office, several times, and we corresponded a bit by email. And it was very much like, "Hey, I don't really see the vision, guys. I don't think I have any work for you." And that's someone we still haven't worked with, and we've just kind of had to become okay with that. And hopefully someday, we can work with them in some way. But yeah, no, it happened a lot, and it still happens, and you have to be okay with that. And I think no matter how successful you become, you'll always have people that aren't ready to work with you. You'll always have people who maybe doubt you. We have ideas with DivFit that we haven't done yet, that we've run past people, and they think that we're crazy for even thinking that's possible. Still, after we've kind of proved what we can do. And part of being an entrepreneur, no matter how long you've been in the game, you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with people telling you, hey, this idea stinks. But if you believe in it and you can, devote your time to it and your resources and your passion, I'm confident that you can get it done.
What do you feel is, your favorite experience to this point, having your own business?
Man, it's just been so rewarding. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, I don't have, family members really who are entrepreneurs. I don't have friends, other than my business partner, Tom. But it's something I've always wanted to do. In my previous job, I loved it. I really did. I worked in the mental health field. But I didn't get the same sense of gratification that I have now building something from the ground up. But really, if I were to pinpoint, my favorite moment, oddly enough, it probably is in that first year and a half of just grinding, of just going out and talking to people. It's like that concept of, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, type 3 fun, where you have, your fun where you go skiing or whatever. And, your type 2 fun is something that, maybe a bit more tense, but type 3 fun is where it was miserable in the moment. And then you look back on it and you're like, man, that was actually really fun. So yeah, I think just that grind of going out and talking to people and trying to start something and having this new concept and meeting people, I think that was, probably one of the more impactful, year and a half of my life, proving to myself that I could do it and, fighting through the naysayers and really just grinding and growing something.
Yeah, there's a lot of, as you think back, just like that, that introspect, when you've gone through things that are really difficult, when you have a vision that you're passionate about and you push it and you kind of, you've never arrived. Like no one's never arrived. And I think any true entrepreneur, business owner knows they've never arrived. You can't be complacent, but you get to a point where, as you said, you might start that initial climb and you're like, this is much harder than I thought, but then you get up to a little peak and you can take a quick rest and then, okay, now I see the next peak, I got to get up, and you keep striving to it. But, I love that because there's, your passion that you have, Stu, and the drive. There's something to be said, I'm sure, that proud kind of parent moment when you see your product in there and you're like, hey, we did this. Like, we came up with this idea. We actually got in a project. Like, now we're actually building a business. We got employees. We have, we have social media. We have these things that really are bringing, like, they're making a difference,
Yeah, absolutely.
What are your core values?
That's a great question, man.
I know you weren't ready for that one.
I know I was not ready for that. And that's and to be totally transparent with you and honest with you, that's one area in our business where I think that we need to devote a lot more time is, what is our mission? What are our core values? We've been grinding for 3 years now. Of trying to build this thing to where I think we're finally at a point, and this is something, we should have done before, but I think we're finally to a point where we have the time and resources to sit down and say, what is it? Who exactly are we? What exactly do we want to build? How do we want to impact, the community around us? So I wish I had a better answer for you of what our core values are, but, I think we're to a point now where we can really sit down and figure that out.
Well, maybe even outside of core values, like, how do you feel it's changed your leadership? Just
personally? Oh yeah, no, it's changed me, dramatically. So we have one employee really. His name is Jake. He does our sales for us. And just the way I've seen myself even change in the past few months of working with him, of, at first I didn't want to let go of any of my control. I didn't want to, give my responsibilities to anyone else. But now working with him, in my leadership role of delegating and being okay with someone making mistakes and being okay coaching somebody through, a difficult sales call or something like that. So I guess on a professional side, that's how it's changed me a bit. But even personally, the way that I view life now and the way that I view work, and really what a privilege it is to be able to work. You know, before, and you know, my life before of a 9 to 5, you know, I kind of, you know, you almost dreaded every single day waking up to go to work and do the same thing and sit on some Excel sheet and, you know, do whatever you had to do. But now just understanding how amazing it is to have the opportunity to work. You know, it's a privilege to work. It's a privilege to meet people and to serve people and to just do all these amazing things that come with owning and operating a business.
I love that. And so now, I mean, you've alluded to that. So are you full time now? Like, has the business
Yeah.
taken off where you guys can fully operate and stand alone?
Yeah, no, I am full time. I've been full time with it for a year and a half now.
Yeah.
Uh, it worked out nice because my business partner Tom was in tech sales, and he got laid off like a year and 9 months ago, and so he went more full time with it. And he was also doing some coaching on the side, and then about 3 months later, leading up to the what would have been the 2024 Parade of Homes, we had a couple jobs going on, and it just wasn't working anymore for me to have my full time job, and so I made that leap and quit my job, and it was the hardest and the best decision I've ever made, of leaving that security of that, hey, I'm going to get a paycheck every 2 months, or not every 2 months, every 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to really the unknown of this unproven concept that we had. So yeah, no, it's been an awesome experience and very rewarding.
Yeah, I mean, we've touched on this a little bit. You mentioned that, you know, you don't come from like a family of entrepreneurs, right? So this is like a
Mm-hmm.
learned behavior. And it's funny how, you know, entrepreneurs, I mean, I think your experience is pretty unique overall when it comes to entrepreneurship, because most people are either born into it, like they come from family, you know, it's kind of heritage thing. A lot of people are entrepreneurs, or they're forced into it, right? They, you know, due to circumstances, like they're just like, okay, well, I got to start a business, so I got to figure it out, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And I mean, you've had, you know, in some ways it's, you know, something that you've like always wanted to do. And, you know, but taking that leap of faith takes a lot of courage. I mean, I commend you, Stu. I think, you know, I'm sure, look, you know, now as you've been into it though, as you look back, do you feel there's other decisions you would have made, you know, that maybe could accelerate that? To me, this is always tough because I feel for my journey personally, you know, yeah, knowing what I know now, there's different decisions or maybe communication or projects, you know, but I think in some ways you're kind of grateful for that learning experience because it kind of helps your growth, right?
Mm-hmm.
But still, there's definitely things I could have changed. So, like for you, you know, what does that look like for you as you look back saying, man, I wish I'd have known this? Like this may would have helped us, you know, accelerate a little bit faster.
I really wish I would have understood how long it took to build something.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I'm only 3 years into this. I like you said, I have not summited that mountain yet, and I never will. But I think a lot of times, I listen to people who are starting a business and they get pretty down on themselves of like, man, we've been going for a couple months now and we haven't really done much. And, you know, they run into the days where it seems like they have everything they need to do, but they have no idea what to do.
Hmm.
Um, you know, so I wish I would have understood how long it took to build something. Um, I really wish that, and this is something I'm still fighting for, and this might kind of sound silly in this day and age. I I am not good with technology. I'm really not. You know, and I wish before starting a business, I wish I would have had more experience in simple things, even like Excel sheets and formulas and doing all these things, because, you know, now we're kind of to a point where we have some people doing that for us a bit more. But at the beginning, it was me and Tom knows much more about it than I did. Um, but even just the small things of running a business, like, you know, like I said, the tech side of things, um, I wish as well that if I could go back 3 years, I wish I could tell myself, you just have to be more confident. You just have to go in, you know, and I kind of hate the term "fake it till you make it," but in a way, you know, you have to go in, not knowing anything, but you have to go in confidently, not knowing anything, if that makes sense. When you get on these calls, when you meet with these people, you have to go in, be yourself, and sell yourself and make sure, you know, people can trust you.
Yeah, I love that you share that because, you know, you know, as you think back, I mean, patience, like you don't understand patience, at least I didn't. I mean, you think it's
No.
just going to come off the shelf in some way. And, you know, you don't realize, you know, how much time it's going to take and the effort. And I think maybe that's by intent, because if all of us understood that, we probably wouldn't take the plunge, you know?
Yep.
But also, one of the challenges of being a small business is you may be great at your craft. Like there's things I'm sure that you really excel at, Stu. And for me, maybe as it applies to construction, someone could be a great framer, but are they a great business owner? Because it's so different. And I look back and I'm like, I wish I would have taken, marketing classes. I wish I would have
Yep.
taken, finance classes. There's things to operate in business that are, even if that's not my day to day, you have to have a good understanding of what that means and where your company's going, the direction. You mentioned, you even something as simple as your name, you're like, well, diversified fitness is kind of a tongue twister. It's long, but with DivFit, that's catchy. People are like, what is it? And so even from a strategy of marketing and these little nuanced things of business, like it's, you have to be very good at a lot of things and understand that where you're not good at, you have to delegate.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. It's been fun. It's been rewarding. I keep on going back to that rewarding word, and it's because that's really how I feel. It's I'm still in a phase, and I know you are too, Brad, where 16-hour days can become pretty common. But it's being able to build something like that. That's amazing. And also, I referenced this earlier, whenever my business partner and I make a mistake, when it comes to, maybe we signed up for some sort of advertising thing that didn't pan out. And, we always call it our tuition. Anytime we're on a job site, and something goes wrong, we always look at each other and we say, it's tuition. Like this is the price we pay to learn. This is the price we pay to become, better entrepreneurs, better leaders. So yeah, no, it comes with its fair amount of difficulties. But as long as you have that growth mindset of I'm going to learn from this, I'm going to be better, and you execute the next time around, I think that's all that matters.
How's your relationship with Tom? Being in a partnership can be tough. I mean, in a lot of ways it's rewarding because you're not, fighting on this island by yourself and trying to climb the mountaintop and you have no one to talk to. But there's challenges of communication and job roles and, pay. Like how's that partnership been?
Yeah, so it's been good. So Tom and I have a unique relationship. So Tom and I met in driver's ed when we were 15 years old at Timpanogos High School in Orem, Utah. And so from there we became, really good friends. And then crazy enough, Tom and I actually got called to go on an LDS mission at the same time to the same place. So we walked into the missionary training center in Provo together, flew out to Lubbock, Texas together, flew back home 2 years later. And then, he got home from his mission. He went the summer sales route and was doing all that stuff for pest control. And then he got married. I got married. He moved down to St. George. I stayed up in Utah Valley. And then him and I went through some really similar life circumstances at the same time. And he moved back up to Utah Valley. And one night we were out to dinner. And I said something like, man, like I just want to do something. And, that wasn't my current job. And he looked at me, he's like, dude, I've got this crazy idea. Like, what if we did gyms? And I said, sure. And we got that St. George job. And then, so I think we're lucky where we've known each other for, a decade and a half. And we've been good friends throughout that whole time. And so, it's been a pretty seamless partnership. He has strengths that I don't have. I have strengths that he doesn't have. But that's not to say that there hasn't been challenges, because anytime you're in a partnership, there's going to be challenges. There's going to be differences. There's times where he probably thinks I'm a huge idiot. And I know there's times where I think he's a huge idiot, and those are just things you have to talk through. So I think when it comes to a partnership, any partnership can work as long as both parties are committed to communication. We have this, kind of unspoken rule that if one of us does something that we don't agree with, then we have to say something. And when it comes to money, both Tom and I sign off on every single purchase. Sure, there's times where we, sign up for something or buy something that I'm like, oh, I don't know if, this is the right move, but I trust Tom's judgment. And I'm sure there's been times where we've signed up or bought something that I wanted and Tom trusted my judgment on it. So as long as that communication is there, I think any partnership can work as long as there's that foundation of honesty, communication, And you guys have that same vision going forward.
It's amazing. What keeps you up at night, stress wise?
Oh my gosh, man. Everything. You know, when we have, it's difficult when it comes to timelines when you're ordering stuff, from overseas, because you never know exactly when it's going to show up. And a lot of times, I'm sure, as you know, these logistic companies are not great on updating you on when something's going to arrive.
Yeah,
So,
never.
there's times when we have, an order coming in with $200,000 of equipment. And I don't really know when it's going to show up. There's times where something may have gone wrong on a project, and I'm staying awake at night thinking about how are we going to solve this? How are we going to make sure there's a good resolution? How are we going to make sure our client's happy? How are we going to make sure that the builder and designer we're working with want to work with us again after this mistake happened? Things like that. In the beginning days, it was, man, I really hope we get a job so I can eat. I guess it was never that dire of not being able to eat, but
Not far from it. Yeah.
things can get pretty thin, when it comes to your funds as a starting company, and it's your full-time gig. So luckily, those days, I hope, are behind us. But yeah, those are some of the things that were huge stressors on me, and that are still huge stressors on me.
Yeah, it's the hard thing about what we do is you have to feed that machine every day, like constantly. Like, and what's really tough about construction is there's so many variables, right? And you spoke to this. There could be delays from the builder, and so you have product here and storage fee. I mean, or you got to get it here, and you're getting delayed by overseas or wherever. You're dealing with that. But the reality is, you have to find the next job. Like, you always have to continue to be searching. And when you get them, you have to execute. So at the same time you're trying to execute, you're still trying to put another hat on to say, let me look around the corner and look 1, 2, 3 years out and figure out where this is coming. And so, anyone in the industry, whether you're a trade partner, supplier, or, general contractor, even design and architecture, for me, I understand the stress, that looms, with just the day-to-day of what we do.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what do you do for fun?
I love being outside. Huge. I love backpacking.
It's too
I
cold
love
outside
skiing
in the winter. What are you talking about?
Oh man, no, that's when it's at its best, man. Skiing, snowmobiling. Yeah, I'm a sucker for all that. So my passion outside of work is anything in the mountains. I have my dog Charlie. She's a golden retriever, and then my girlfriend and her son. They love being out with me, and sports. And I'm a huge Utah Jazz fan, San Francisco Giants, Utah Mammoth. Anything outside, anything being active, I absolutely love.
It's amazing, having grown up in San Diego and living in Phoenix, it's, I try to run from the cold. That's not where I want to be in the winter, but I'd rather be at the beach. No, but I appreciate I'm very outdoors too and into sports. And so I think we align that way. And, I'm more joke than anything, but it is, you live in a beautiful area, Stu, and there is a lot of like outdoor, if you're an outdoor person, there's a lot for you to do all year round, which is incredible.
Absolutely. And I part of the reason I love this area so much is that we're so close to Park City, which is where we do, a lot of our work. And we have some really, really cool opportunities coming up with some amazing developments up there to do not only home gyms, but some really nice community gyms and some of those newer developments that are going on.
Yeah, you got Marcella. Deer Valley's exploded. Park City and Deer Valley have completely exploded.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, I actually just submitted a bid yesterday for an absolutely amazing fitness center and yoga center for one of those new developments going on up there. Assuming that it goes through, because I think it will, it's going to be what I think is going to be the world's nicest community gym.
Wow.
It's going to be absolutely amazing.
Well, I was just going to ask what's upcoming and exciting for you.
Yeah. So we have, funny enough, we started in the home space, which is still where we do a lot of our work. But since the Parade of Homes, there's been actually several commercial gyms that have reached out to us. One of them being, it's a new gym in Provo, right at the mouth of Provo Canyon, called Annika. And it's going to be Utah's really truly first luxury gym. It's a hot Pilates studio, cold plunge sauna, and then a free weight gym. So our portion, we're obviously doing the free weight gym. And that should be hopefully opening up this December. And
Wow.
it's just going to be an absolutely amazing space. And that's the project that Studio McGee is working on as well. Um, so that one's amazing. We have parade homes coming up in Utah Valley, St. George, Park City. We have a project going on up in Idaho. So yeah, lots of really cool projects going on right now. And one other commercial gym that I can't say who it is, but it's backed up by a pretty amazing investor that will be cool to interact with him and get to know him a bit more.
It's amazing. Well, we're excited to follow along, and I can't wait to show our followers some of the stuff you're doing, Stu. So, for those that listen, our designers, architects, and builders, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find us at DivFit.com, or you can find our Instagram, DivFit Gyms, or you can reach out to me directly at Stu at DivFit.com. We'd love to talk with you and see how we can help with these amazing projects. One thing I want to add is uh, the wellness space is changing. It's really having its beginning moments, and we are absolutely dedicated to helping all professionals in this field create the most amazing wellness spaces. And we're really at a point now where we have the connections and the resources to be able to make the world's most world class, whether it's home gyms, commercial gyms, wellness boutique gyms. So yeah, it's been an amazing experience, and we'd love to help anyone we can with their projects.
I love that. Well, Stu, you've been incredible. Can't thank you enough for making time, and appreciate the friendship, and soon we'll have a project together.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Brad. Thank you so much.